crafty friends, today we are going to make this adorable unicorn felt plushie. A free pattern is in the description below, so click that link, print your pattern, come back here, and let's get started sewing this together. This pattern is perfect for beginner level sewers and kids with a little bit of adult supervision, so print your pattern and let's get started. To create this unicorn felt plushie, you're going to need a few supplies. You're going to need some felt in the colors you want your unicorn to be, some scissors. They're going to need to be bigger scissors that can cut through felt. Kids' scissors are not a good fit for this. Something to trace your pattern with. A marker works really well. The pattern, again, this is in the link description below. Just click, print, come back. Some embroidery floss. This is just kind of thicker thread. It shows up. And then an embroidery needle. Again, this one has a thicker eye so that the floss can fit through it. And then if you want to do a really detailed eye, like an eyelash eye, so I've kind of got an example here. I sewed this with some thread. This is just like single strand thread and a needle for that. You can also use embroidery floss and just do a circle knot eye. So that's I've done on some of these plushies where you just knot it and do a few times and it gives a nice black eye. You can sew on a bead, you can cut out a circle of felt and use that felt for an eye. So there's a lot of eye options. And then you're going to want something to stuff your plushie with. I oftentimes just use my scrap felt, but you can use polyfill. That's kind of what you use in normal stuffed animals. And sometimes I have cut up and used a plastic bag to stuff inside of it. So lots of options. And it's going to turn out great. So go print your pattern, cut it out, and come back here. Once you have your pattern cut out, it's time to start tracing it. As you start tracing it, put your pattern right on the edge of your felt where you want to trace. And all of these that have cut to, cut them one side where you can see the pattern and then flip it over and trace it once on the other side. This is just going to make it line up better when we're stitching it together. So go ahead, trace all your felt pieces, and then come on back. Once you have all your pieces traced, it's time to start cutting them out. Now, when you cut them out, you want to cut off your black tracing line. So cut just inside your pattern a little bit. This will make it so it doesn't show up when we're sewing it together. Once you have all your pieces cut out, it's time to start attaching the legs, the front and the back legs. So for a horse, their knees bend opposite of human knees. So their knees kind of bend back. So as you're taking this piece out, line it up on your unicorn piece cut out with this knee part pointing backwards. Then we're going to thread your embroidery needle. I like to thread it and then pull both of my ends the same together, and I'm going to make a loop knot back here. So I'm just going to twist it in a circle, tuck the tail into my circle, and then I like to hold where these lines are crossed on my finger. So I'm lining it up kind of at the end. I'm holding this knotted place and I'm just gently sliding this down. So that puts your knot kind of close to the end. If you find that you have a really long tail at the end, you can just grab your scissors and cut it off. And now with that, we are going to attach this back leg. So I'm just going to go through both pieces of felt, pull my needle, and I'm leaving a little bit back here. And then I'm going to push it back through pretty close to where I came out. And then on this back side, I'm going to pause before I pull it really tight. And between these two threads, I'm going to stick my needle, and this is going to help me knot it in place. Now I've got the leg attached. I'm actually going to do one more knot, and the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to slide my needle through where this tight thread is. I'm going to grab the end of it, and I'm going to wrap it around my needle 2 times. And then again, I'm going to put my finger over the top of it, and I'm going to pull my needle through, and that's just going to give me a big knot here on the back. And then I'm going to trim it down, and I'm going to repeat that step for the front leg. And if you decide that you don't want to do the thinner, more detailed eye, you're going to use these same steps to do the eye of your unicorn. If you are doing an eye, so the eye on my like pterodactyl, it's a lot bigger than this little bit we did back here. And this one, I just went in and out like 3 different times, kind of in the same spot, trying to cross over where I went. And that's going to make your eye hole bigger. Now, when you do the other side of your unicorn, the only thing is we want to sew so that our knots are on the inside of all of it. So take your unicorn, line the pattern up, line your legs up, and as you're sewing it, so I'm going to again do a loop knot, and I want to make sure that the knots for all of these are going to be on the inside of the body. So I don't want to go from the front leg to the back. I want to make sure that I have the unicorn piece lined up with my other one, and then I'm going to go from the inside out so that these kind of thicker knots, they're going to be on the inside of the unicorn, and they're not going to show when we sew the pieces together. All right, and then when I put my patterns together, again, you can see that the knots for all of them go on the inside of the unicorn's body. and they are ready for the next level of stitching. Now we're going to grab your thinner thread if you're doing thinner thread. If you are doing embroidery floss, you can just get another knot of embroidery floss. This is going to be a trickier, more detailed thing to do. And if you are sewing something for the first time, this step might be a little tricky for the very first time, and I would probably suggest just doing a knot eye. But for this one, I'm also going to show you how to do kind of the unicorn eyelash eye. So I am taking my thread, I'm making it parallel right here at the end, knotting it together again. And this is kind of slow, more detailed work. So I'm going to pull up my piece and I'm going to try to decide where I want the eye to start. I think right here seems good. I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to put it back through just a little bit down. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the others. I'm going to make this into a knot back here. I'm putting my needle between these two threads before I pull it tight. Okay, and then I want to go to the edge of this because I want that eye to be a little bit longer. So I'm just going to go down a little bit, coming out over here. And as I'm pulling it through over here, I'm going to go right back through this hole right here that I started at. That's going to give me that longer curved. Okay, and now I want to add some eyelashes. So the next time I'm going to come to the back of it and I'm going to poke my needle through back here. I don't know if I want my eyelash to start quite that far down. I think I want it up a little bit more. So I'm going to actually pull my needle back. I'm going to try up here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to pull my needle through. And then I'm going to go right to the corner of where this is. So this is going to be my unicorn's eyelash. Okay, so then I'm going to just add two more. Close. So we're going to go up there. And I'm going to pull this one down to the corner again right here. And I'm going to do one more eyelash, maybe down. Too far. Again, I'm going to put that one right at the corner. There's my unicorn with eyelashes. And then like I did with the others, I'm going to slide my needle through this collection right here. Wrap the string 2 times, put my thumb over it to hold it in place as I'm sliding my needle out. I'm going to trim off the thread. And there's my unicorn with her eyelashes. I'm going to repeat that same thing on this other side. All right, and now that we have our legs and our eyes sewn on, it is time to start sewing our unicorn together. And we are going to add the tail and the mane as we go along. But we are at a point where we can start piecing it together. So for this, you're gonna get your embroidery floss that matches your felt, and you're gonna want kind of a long piece. I usually go from about my fingertips to my shoulder. And if it ends up being too short, you can always add more. You just knot off your floss while you're going and just start re-sewing. And that is a totally normal and fine thing to happen. This time I am not doing a parallel knot. I am going to do a single knot. So I'm making a loop, putting the tail through, and then finding where the strings cross and putting my finger there as I pull it. That's going to give me my knot just right at the end. And then when I start sewing my patterns together, I like to start between the back legs so that it hides that knot, your initial knot a little bit. So you're going to start by going through both pieces of felt, pulling your string almost to the end, and then we're just going to put it through a couple of these strings right here. Okay, so after we do that first knot stitch, we're going to pull it down, and now we are going to do a simplified blanket stitch. And that is where you're going to go through both pieces of felt, and then you're going to grab this tail kind of close to where your other knot was, and you're just going to wrap it over the top of your needle and then pull it through. And we're going to go through both pieces of felt, go over the top of your needle and pull it through. Oop. Ideally not getting your other pieces stuck. And that's just going to give us this nice, so where you get the lines down stitch and then you've got one across the top. Through both pieces. Whoop. Untangle it if it gets tangled around your other ones. Pull it through. And we're going to keep going till about where we want to add the tail. All right, and now that I'm right here, kind of where I'm ready to add the tail, so you're gonna add the tail piece between those two pieces of felt. And now, instead of doing this blanket stitch, we're going to do a running stitch for just a minute. And a running stitch is even easier than a blanket stitch. It's just you go in all of the pieces of felt. You're gonna pull your string tight, and then you're just gonna move it along, and you're gonna go back through all the pieces of felt. We're just gonna attach that tail with a running stitch. And then we're gonna go back to a blanket stitch until we get to about the top of this back leg. And then we're gonna look at getting that mane added. All right, now I'm gonna pause right here, and I'm gonna grab this hair piece. And I want the bangs to go on one side of the horn. I don't want it to go through the horn, but you can have it go through the horn if you want. So I'm just gonna place it in my unicorn's back. It's coming up a little bit so I can see where I wanna sew it. Okay, so I'm gonna do a blanket stitch until I get to the edge of this mane, and then I'm gonna do that running stitch again where I go just in and out. And I'm going to do that all the way up until I get to the ear. And then we're gonna pause there again. Okay, so I've reached the mane, trying to keep my felt edges aligned. Pull it down a little bit, and I'm just gonna do the in and out stitch. Okay, now I'm gonna keep doing the running stitch around the ears because I want the ears to be like two separate pieces. I don't really want them to connect together. So I'm gonna keep going with my running stitch, and I'm not going around the ears, I'm going under the ears. And you can see I've bent the bangs of my felt out, so they're out on this side and they're on the other side of the horn on this side. And now I'm gonna go back to my blanket stitch to go around the horn now that I'm past the mane. So that's where you go through both, and you just pull the edge of the fabric over, or pull the edge of the sewing floss over. Wiggle my bangs out. Okay, I'm actually gonna pause right here. So it looks like I did not get that third piece of felt, or I didn't get that bangs when I was sewing the ear. So I'm gonna take off my needle for a second, and I am just gonna undo some of these stitches because I do want that piece of bangs in. Gonna grab it, and I'm gently just wiggling it out, and I'm gonna go back a few stitches. That. There we go. Now we've caught it. Okay, and then we're going to keep going with the blanket stitch all the way around the unicorn's face and neck, and we're going to pause right here between these two arms, because then we're going to start filling it with our polyfill or our stuffing or our fluff. Once you get to the spot between the front legs, we're going to start putting our filler in to fluff up our unicorn, and you're going to want to fill the further places first. So this like back part by the tail and this face. So grab a small piece, push it in with your fingers, and push it up as high as you can get it. And if you can't get it all the way into that small space, feel free to grab a pencil, or sometimes I use the back of the scissors, and just push it in until you feel like it's fluffed a good amount, or amount that you like. And again, we're going to do the further away bits first. Okay, once you have it full, we're going to go back and we're going to do a blanket stitch from these front legs all the way back to our starting stitch. And at our starting stitch, we're going to do that knot stitch where you wrap it around the needle twice and you pull it through. You are going to have to be careful sewing now that you have it filled, because it's a little tricky not to catch the inside stuff as you're doing your blanket stitch. So you're probably just going to have to push it in as you go. Grab your two edges of felt, wrap the tail around it. Push it in a little bit more as you're going by it. Two edges. Wrap it around. I'm just moving the legs out of the way as I'm doing these last few stitches. Okay, so I'm back to my first stitch right here, and I'm just going to go through it again. Pull this over, but instead of just going around it one time, I'm going to go around it 2 times. This is going to be my final knot stitch. I'm going to pull that tight, and then I'm going to push my needle through the inside of my unicorn and out the back. Pull my thread as far through as I can. I'm going to trim it right against the fur right there and let it pull inside. And there's your final unicorn. If you like this or you're interested in more easy sew along tutorials, be sure to like and follow along. I will be back next week with another free pattern and sewing experience.